Um, we're going to be looking at a market basket. It's going to be very similar to what we did with GDP to look at the changes and what is going on. So you have a note set that looks like this. It says inflation and the consumer price index. As you can see, I'm going to come around there. We're going to do some calculations. I've given you how to figure out the base year, how to calculate the rate of inflation between years, and some examples, okay? Some of this we're going to stop and then we're going to do because it won't follow my PowerPoint. But what we're going to do is I have a PowerPoint that goes with this. We pass that back. But I had added in some extra math just because the PowerPoint was very brief on the math portion. Here we go. So we've just looked at inflation and its effects. Our government has the Bureau of Labor and Statistics that actually goes out every month, and they look at inflation. They go and buy market baskets of stuff. So they go in each region of the United States, because I don't know why it's moving. They go in each region of the United States and they look at what a market basket is. So what region of America, I don't know why it's moving.
Like a time.
I think it's on a timer, but what region of America do you think the stuff is going to be the most expensive? California. Maybe the New York, the Northeast, right? And so the Bureau of Labor and Statistics basically takes a market basket of each region and they determine what's going on. And one of the things is that we know inflation causes our life to be a little bit harder, right? So y'all know Zimbabwe, right? $100 trillion. They've had hyperinflation. Hey, one of these things just buys a loaf of bread. Yes?
What's Zimbabwe?
It's a nation.
But then, how many? I'm sorry. What do you mean $100 trillion?
Buys a loaf of bread because what happened is that they just started having hyperinflation. That inflation took off. Remember, we've been calculating it over time. Well, they had inflation that was over 1,000%. Because what we're going to get to in monetary policy is that for the government to fund their spending, they put more money out there. And when they put more money out there, our money supply what? Increases, causing inflation, which I'm going to get to in the next move, in our next unit about monetary policy. And so this country, to finance the way its government was running and to finance the crown there, they printed out money. And by printing out that money, that increased the supply of money, thus dwindling the value of it and causing inflation. So I don't know if y'all know Mr. Anu. Did most of y'all have him last year or something like that? No. But he talks about how he's a millionaire in his home country of last year they knew where he was from. I can't remember. Cameroon, there you go. That's where it is. And he's like a millionaire. But like you look at the value of money he has here in the United States, it's nothing. But they have hyperinflation. So he could go there and he has a house and he has all this stuff because they have hyperinflation. I could look at it in the same thing in Mexico. Like my dollar buys a lot more stuff in Mexico because they have inflation. Y'all probably studied in world history. Y'all know Russia. It used to take like a pile of a wheelbarrow of money to be able to buy something because they had hyperinflation. And that means the government was producing money, and when doing that production of money, it caused inflation. This will be our next unit. I'm sorry to introduce it here because you're like, oh my gosh. I'm going to get to that in the next unit about what happens when our government produces too much money and its effects and how it causes inflation. Yes?
So how much of that equals to $1?
We'll look in unit 6. So let's look at how much is a $100 trillion equal to from. Why isn't it up there?
says it was the $100 trillion. No.
You would be a trillionaire.
Are you?
A million times over.
What's in my wallet right now?
Wait, so this is only away with good?
Well, time to move to Zimbabwe.
He has like 4 seconds.
Dude, I would be a millionaire from my wallet.
People are buying these.
We want to build confidence in Zimbabwe. This country is lacking two things: lack of confidence and lack of capital. The two are related. Because once they've got the confidence, then capital will come to Zimbabwe. And investors can come to invest in Zimbabwe when they know that with the money that they're utilizing, it's only one currency unit, as opposed to continue.
I don't know if you can understand him, but he's basically saying because their dollar is only worth 40 cents, many Americans are like, wow, I'm going to go to Zimbabwe and my money is going to buy a lot, right? And I'm going to invest in Zimbabwe, which we're eventually going to talk about that in Unit 6, okay? But do y'all see how inflation impacts them? Their nation is basically worthless, right? And it's going to allow other people to come in and invest. And I don't know if y'all could understand what he's saying. I'm just going to stop there. Yes. Huh? Yes.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I'm about to start the PowerPoint now. So go ahead, go.
Huh?
Alright, I don't know if this is on a timer. Alright, shh. Alright, so I'm just gonna leave it like this because I don't know if it's on a timer. I thought I took it off the timer, but I don't know. So what inflation is, which we've been talking about, this is what you put in the first little thing. Inflation occurs when the overall price, the price level is rising. That's all you have to put. The overall price level is rising. So you go one day to the next, you can see inflation. Usually it's calculated monthly by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. They send out shoppers within a specific region to go buy bread, to go buy milk, to go buy gas. And they're gonna calculate, y'all remember this from like beginning algebra, where they calculate everything and they average a mean. Yeah, and that's what they do, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They go into a region, they buy stuff to figure out the inflation. And what they will do is they're going to calculate the inflation rate, which is the next thing, the percent change in the price level from one time period to another. So the Bureau of Labor and Statistics for the government daily does this, and monthly will publish what is going on in a cost of market basket. Okay, so we're going to be calculating like we did with GDP, but the Consumer Price Index, CPI, measures, this is what you put in the third box, it measures the overall cost of goods and services bought by a typical consumer. So there is a typical market basket, which we look with the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and I think I've taken it off this PowerPoint. I don't know, there should be like a circle coming down. And they report monthly about what consumers buy. And then there's a producer one. There's not a government one because we only have one government, but we have a lot of producers and we have a lot of consumers. So the Consumer Price Index is probably one of our most accurate things over time that monitors the cost of living over time. So why is CPI used? It is used to monitor the changes in the cost of living, which that's the fourth box, what we're going to write. So we are going to be doing calculations real soon to figure out month to month, year to year, what is going on with inflation.
On the last slide is pi, is that inflation?
Yeah. Which we're going to look at delta. Y'all have probably seen delta meaning change, and y'all see like right there, it's on the back side too, is my pi is my inflation rate, okay? So this is going to be one of the most accurate indicators about telling us about how much we are being able to purchase at a single time. So I think there is a timer because it has those little stars on it. The mouse does not like this PowerPoint. Okay. So what we'll calculate is a fixed market basket. Again, that identifies typical consumer items. Oh, here it is. This is what the CPI basket measures. So this is how you should be spending your money. For y'all, housing is not your biggest thing, right? But what they look at is the Bureau of Labor Statistics says of your income, 41% of it should be spent on housing. So when you go get your home loan, they look at how much you make and they're going to calculate what is 40% of that. So if you think about a person who's only making $10,000 a year, which most minimum wage jobs are, they could only be living in a house that's worth $4,000. Do you understand why people are saying minimum wage does not help you have a good living conditions? And so this is why people are saying what must happen with minimum wage. It must be increased, because if you're only making $10,000, you could only spend $4,000 a year on your living, right? So 4,000 divided by 12 gives you how much? $300 a month. Can you find somewhere where you could live for $300 a month? No, and this is why the argument keeps on going that minimum wage must be increased, because if we're looking at this, if you're only making $10,000 and 16% of it must be on food and beverages, you're only spending $1,600 a year on food, right? But that means only $102. Can people live on $102? No, this is why they keep on saying that minimum wage hasn't rose enough to compensate for inflation. No, so this is what your market basket looks at. It looks at your food, your transportation, your education, medical expenses, what you do for recreation. And again, most of y'all's recreation is more than 6%, right? Hey, so this is not supposed to be applicable to people who are living single or living at home. This is applicable to people who actually have a job and are out there on their own. So right now, do y'all understand why they say working minimum wage, you cannot afford to live in the United States? Okay? So the Consumer Price Index is calculated. We basically, there's someone in the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this is their job as an economist. They go to the stores and they go and buy goods and services. That's all they do. They shop. And then they're going to calculate all those prices and they're going to be able to look at stuff. And so families will face issues. When CPI rises, that is inflation, right? What happens to your living? If all of a sudden, let me go back to this market basket. Everything in this market basket goes up. How is your living at this time? You're not living good, right? So what issues do families have when they face that all of the stuff in this market basket increases? Their standard of living decreases. So right now, people who are living on minimum wage, has their income been compensated for that inflation? So we know people who are living on minimum wage jobs, which is more than half of America today. Can y'all believe that? Over half of America is living off minimum wage. Can they afford to live in the United States? Which is one of the greatest ironies, because we are seen as one of the most affluent nations, right? But yet people who are living off minimum wage cannot afford that market basket. So this is why the government has created, what have they created to help? Food stamps, right? There's subsidized housing, because a person living on minimum wage can really not afford this. So we're going to compute the basket, and we're going to look at how it changes over time. We're going to have a base year. Didn't we have that with GDP? Okay, so to compute inflation, we look at the percent change from the index from the preceding period, which we've seen last time when we did GDP, right? We took new year minus old year over old year times a same equation, right? But last time I was calculating for what? GDP, right? And now I'm calculating for what? Same equation, okay? Don't worry about this. I promise it's on like this right here. It's already here, okay? Okay, so basically, I'm not going to do that one. We're going to do this one. Do y'all see it on there? That y'all have hot dogs and hamburgers, right? On your thing. So let me pull mine up. the way it was put here. Okay, do y'all see right here? We need to calculate the base year. But in order to calculate it, what must we do to get the CPI of the year? What do we do? Multiply across. So on this one, just like we did with GDP, right? 1 times 4 is going to give me what for that total? 4. 2 times 2 is going to give me what? And this CPI for this year basket is 8. Then I go to the next year's basket. Noah, you did not multiply in total. Unless your nose was doing it or your wake up, sir. Good day. Let's do this year, just like we've done before. 2 times 4 is going to give me what? 3 times 2 is going to give me what? So what is the CPI for this market basket of the year? 14. Then I come over here. 3 times 4 is going to give me what? 4 times 2 is going to give me what? What is the market basket for this year for CPI? Okay, over the years, did we see that the market basket increased in price? So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how much did that go. So to calculate our price index, we're going to take the year over the base times 100. So let's just do it for 2001. What was the year? What's the number? 8 over what? Times what? So that gives me 1 times 100, which is going to give me what? 100. 2002. I take the year. What's the year's number?
14.
Over what?
8.
Okay, so 14 over 8. Gosh, we need a calculator, right? I'll have calculators the day of the test, so let's clear this. I take 14. Oh, that's 17. That was wrong, right? 14 divided by 8. That gives me that. And I need to multiply it times 100, which y'all know means just add a couple of zeros. That gives me 175, right? Now I do it for the next year. What number do I put on top? Over what? Times what? What did that give you?
250.
Okay, let's check the math. 820 divided by 8. And then it's 2.5 times 100. That gives me, okay. Did this give me something in comparison to? Yeah, right? So now, how do we calculate the CPI inflation rate? We're going to take year 2 minus year 1 over year 1 times 100. You already know when we did that for the first one, it always equaled 0. So now let's look at just 2002. So what is the number I put in for 2002? What's the first number?
14.
I take this.
Wait, I'll use one.
What is it?
175.
175 minus what? Year 1, 100 over what? Times. So now, like I told you, when you do this in your calculator, you take 175 and you have to minus that 100. Get that first, right? That gives you that. Then divide by 100. And now we multiply that times 100, which should give you what?
75%.
Okay. Now for 2003. We take what? Let me sure if we take
Is it minus year 2?
let me check that because I want to make sure that I'm doing it right. Hey, it is minus
The previous year.
the previous year, so 175 is always the year before, not the because it didn't say base, right?
Right.
Okay, over 175. So now let's do our math. 250, and I have to take away 175 before I even divide, right? That gives me 75 divided by 175 times. Is that what y'all got? Is that what y'all got?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so doesn't this look similar like GDP? This is why I told you, I spent a lot of time on GDP going through it because I said if I get this right with y'all, I'm gonna get CPI right. So now let me go back to my PowerPoint because we were just going back through math. Was it familiar? Was it like riding a bike what we did with GDP? So let me go back to my PowerPoint. So, I can't find the mouse. Okay, so we did this, right? We multiplied it times across. Isn't that what we got? Okay, and then we did this. Did we get that on our paper?
Yes.
Guess what? We were doing GDP and we already knew it. And then we did that, right? And we got that. Great. It is the same math, right? Okay, so CPI is an accurate measure of selected goods, typically that are bundled together. And everything basically in the store is gonna be bundled, and to measure the cost of living. We're gonna see, there is other things that get in the way of substitution, of CPI calculating it, like substitution. So like if my income goes down, is Miss Verdine gonna be buying the brand name Oreos? What's gonna happen? Walmart brand, a generic brand, whatever it is, Aldi, right? Something, okay? And so that's not gonna be measured in the cost of living. Also, introduction of new goods. So it always took time for the internet to be put on our basket. We see that we don't measure like the quality of goods between years. The substitution, I already talked about that not being in there. This is something we're gonna do later. I just need us to get us down to nominal and real. I need you to go to the back side. Y'all wanna calculate before I go through the rest of the notes so we could get our calculations? Here, let's do this. Let's calculate and then we'll get to the last of our notes on nominal. Okay. Because I wasn't gonna do all those notes. Okay, there is an issue here. I've now given you the total, what was in the market basket, but do you see my market basket here? It's quite weird because it's missing a zero. Okay, I was missing a zero, I don't know what happened. So what I did, instead of giving you, like here, this is a market basket, right? And for this market basket, we have to multiply in total, right? Now I've just given you the total. So what I want us to look at is I want us to figure out the inflation rate. So if I just did 2015, right? I know that's gonna be year one minus year one over year one. That's not gonna work, right? So let's just go to 2016. So what am I gonna program in for year two? Okay, what's for year one? 1,000 over what? And then I'm gonna have to multiply times 100, right? So now let's take this in with our calculator. Again, when you do it with your calculator, make sure you take away, do this first equation first, right? And that's gonna give you 20, right? And then you're gonna divide by what? 1,000. Did I put enough zeros? That gives you 0.02. Then you're gonna multiply times what? Which is gonna give you 2%, right? There we go. For 2017, what are we gonna do? What's the number we put first? 1,040 minus year one, which is what? Over what? Okay. So now times 100. We calculate that out, right? So 1040 minus 1020. And I have to do this first because it won't give me the correct math. That gives me 20. Divided by times, that gives me around 2%, right?
So we round up?
Yeah, just for the sake of this.
Yes,
Okay. How do y'all feel about this one? The rate of inflation. Now let's look at this one. We are now going to do the market basket. To determine the market basket, what's the first step we must do? Multiply and then what? Add. So try it. Yeah, so what did y'all get right here? 5 times 6 is what?
30.
2 times 7 is what?
14.
12 times 3 is what?
36.
What did y'all get for this market basket? 80. Over here, 5 times 5,
25.
9 times 2,
18.
19 times 3. That gave me what? Okay, so I know right here, can I calculate much? So for me to calculate the rate, I have to go to this one, right? So what was my first number I put in? Year what? Year 2, which is what? 100 minus what? Over what? Times what? Okay, so now let's do the math. I do 100 first, minus 80. Can't divide yet, right? Just get this number first. That gives me 20, right? Divided by what now? Times what?
100.
Gives me what?
25%.
There you go. How do y'all feel? Okay, so what we're gonna look at is our last little bit that we're gonna do on nominal. Okay, so nominal interest is what we're gonna write. Haven't we seen nominal GDP? And what did I already tell you that I in nominal means? Inflation. So the nominal interest rate, just like the nominal GDP, is reported and not corrected for inflation because the inflation is in there, right? So this is what you're gonna write on that last box, right? Nominal inflation is reported. It's interest rate usually reported and not corrected for inflation. That I tells me it has inflation. However, the real is the nominal interest rate corrected for inflation, where they take that inflation out to give us the real number where I can compare year to year. Okay, so what we're gonna look at is how do we calculate the nominal interest rate, and this is not on there. What we do, you borrow $1,000 for 1 year. The nominal interest rate is 15%. Whoa. Because again, is that bank trying to make up for inflation? Because it knows when you pay them back, are you gonna pay them back in the same dollars? So this is why banks will charge you higher interest. So during the year, inflation was 10%. So now we're gonna calculate what actual percent they got, right? So they had a really high interest rate, 15%. Minus 10%, which is the real, which gave us 5%. They were only able to make 5% off your investment. So if you look at this, if someone were to give you 0% interest, is that a good deal? Yes, I bought my car at 0%. I would not leave that dealership unless they gave me 0. And they're like, the bank's gonna lose money. I was like, I lose money when I walk out of this dealership with a brand new car, right? It loses $5,000 in value. I'm not gonna leave unless you give me 0%. Did the bank wanna do that? No, because I was gonna be paying it back in what? Money that was worth less. So oftentimes you have to have a good credit score, which we'll talk about with personal finance. How do we get a good credit score so we can pay 0%, okay?